Hey friends, it's Marilyn again, and as promised, today's video will be about the second deck that my friend Richard Boo sent me as a gift. I mean, he's not a card maker, he's not someone who makes cards, he just was kind enough to send me 2 decks that he had extras for, so I'm delighted to be sharing those decks with you. This second deck is a deck that I have no familiarity with. I'm guessing it's a modern deck. I've not researched it or anything. Like I've told you before, when I review a deck, especially when I showcase a deck, I really try to do it fresh and spontaneously, without researching it. This deck is called Fortuna Tarot Deck. It's on the side it says Fortuna Tarot Deck Emerald Anima. So it's playing on the green. It's sealed. I'm opening it in front of you for the first time. I just want to read what the back of the card says, the back of the box says, because maybe it'll give us a little bit of clues, about what we're going to see. The Fortuna Tarot Deck is a 79 card deck. So it's not exactly tarot with 79 cards, unless the 79th card is like a, what's it called? The, the card that you use for the significator card. I don't know, we'll see. To help you unlock your potential and turn your purpose into gold. So there's a reference there to alchemy for sure. The whole process, the whole point of the alchemy was to turn into gold, or to be the best possible outcome, right? Combining ancient alchemical principles, there it is, tarot, numerology, so numbers, have always maintained that numbers play a huge part in interpreting the cards, and in this deck it also does. And astrology. Okay, so there will be astrological features to this deck, which I'm not as familiar with. You will embark on a new journey within toward clarity and enlightenment, opening the gates of the occult and spirituality. This deck was created by Maria J Farjado Praena. I'm sure I'm not saying the name correctly. This deck, and I'll post down below, can be got at studioartemy.com or Studio Artemy. It's not Artmy. Studioartemy.com /@Studio Artemy. Okay, so let me open this package if I can do it without torturing you, and I'll flip the camera to show you what we have. So after removing the plastic, I can tell you that there's a very satisfying feel to the box. I don't know what it's called, but I have felt it on other packages. It's like I don't know what it's like. It's kind of like a smooth velvet, Oh boy, nice box. Key. There's a key. Let's see. There's a lock and key. Nice. Okay, so we have a lock and key motif in the packaging. Open the gates of occult knowledge. And I presume that the lock and key is a suggestion that with this device we can accomplish that. Okay. We have a thick book, which I'm not going to peruse at this point, but I'm not going to read it. I always will read afterwards. Oh, look. Okay, so it looks like there's a caption before each of the trump cards. Let's see. Okay, each of the trump cards, maybe not for the pips, but for the trumps. And just doing that real fast, it almost, oh, and there's some reference to astrology. I think I saw a chart. Yeah, okay. Okay, so this is above my pay grade as far as understanding astrology, which I do not. I don't, you know, it's not that I don't, I just don't subscribe to it. But it would be handy if you're trying to learn, and I have made efforts to learn a little bit. This chart, I think, would be very helpful in that it shows us the signs of the zodiac. It doesn't identify them, however, but it does tell us individually, like 5, 6, and 7 of Cups references, I think that's Scorpio. 8, 9, and 10 of batons or wands would be Sagittarius. I don't know that's which. The 2, 3, and 4 of Pentacles references, I'm not sure what that symbol is. I think it might be, gosh. Is that Saturn? I don't know. No, I don't know what that is. Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo. Maybe that's Scorpio. I don't know what that one is. Oh, I don't know. So there's a few that I don't know. So I'd have to definitely, you know, look things up if I were to use the astrological aspects or features of this particular deck. It's got a nice feel to it. And it's a thick deck. Let me compare it to, I just happen to have a Jean Dodal by Artisan on the table. I was doing readings earlier today, so I was using this deck. Let's use one of these cards to see how much bigger. Okay, so it's about the same size, height-wise, as a typical tarot card, but it's a tad bit thicker. And of course, it doesn't have the, you know, linen finish. It's got more of a, I don't know what that's called, but it's got a nice feel to it. It's definitely thick. Let's compare it to the thickness of the Artisan. Many of you are familiar with Artisan decks. So it's a bit thicker. Let's see how many cards. Okay, so that's quite a few cards. That's quite a few cards thicker. So it is a thick, substantial deck. I'll try to do a shuffle at the end. But the cards are on the stiff side. Could be that I've just, you know, gotten it and I haven't touched it, you know. That might be part of it. And of course, the green edging is very nice. So I think if you like green, you're going to love this deck. Okay, so we have gold embellishments. Okay, now it's identified. The first card is identified as 0, so that leads me to believe it's a reference to the Fool card rather than a significator card, which wouldn't have a number. But the box says there's 79 cards, so I'm not sure where the extra card comes. But here we have the Seeker, or the Fool. We have this symbol, which I think references Uranus. I think. I know a little bit. And the phases, I presume, of the moon. I'm not sure what that symbol is. And I think, you know, we get a lot more insight once we look at the, you know, the intention of the deck and the individual images. But I'm just looking at it purely from my own impressions. It's almost like raining down. Tassels. Something reminiscent of a phases of the moon eclipsed, perhaps. I'm not sure. The embellishment is gold. In person, it looks like a copper gold. I think that's called like a rose gold. When we see it in jewelry, I think it's called rose gold. Okay, the Magician. So we have the lemniscate. I don't think we have the lemniscate in the Fool. Let me see. No. And what looks a little bit like a caduceus, and then wings. So this is very, and I think that's Mercury. Is this Mercury up here? So it gives you the visual clues, so that this is how I feel about astrology and other symbolic symbols on a card, right? If you know what the card means, then those are in addition to, and if you can remember, that Mercury might be associated with sleight of hand or tricksters, right? That's, kind of thing. It's another feature to help you learn the astrology. Also, if you're not as familiar with the representations of a tarot card or what the cards mean, but you're familiar with astrology, those symbols might lend you the awareness that you need in order to better fully understand a card, especially if there's no traditional symbolism on it. So we definitely have enough of a Hermes kind of reference here to pick up on the idea that there is some kind of magic or trickery or sleight of hand. They call it the High Priestess. So again, we have the occult, a bit of an occult reference rather than, calling it the female pope or whatever. And we see the reference to two columns, one dark and one light. I know they're Hebrew references for that. I don't presume to be able to pronounce it properly. We have water. We have a new moon and a full moon and a crescent moon, and a crescent moon up here, and some type of enlightenment. Very pretty. Okay, the Empress is more straightforward, referencing a female person of power. She certainly has a crown. And that is the symbol of Venus up here. And then we have the Emperor, again, more of a male reference, less curvy and more angular, right? We have a beard. And then, of course, we have the symbol for, I think that's Mars. And we realize that the Emperor is kind of like the chief warrior, right? So they don't call, unlike calling the female pope the High Priestess, they're not calling the Pope the Hierophant. They did call this, they made a reference to the High Priestess here, but they're not correspondingly calling the Pope the Hierophant, as they might in an occult deck. They're calling him the Oracle. However, it's got the same features, keys to the kingdom, the triple scepter, with the globe, the reference to the three tiers of spirituality, the plane, the getting more spiritual, and then the spiritual realm, and then of course, I guess the release into infinity and beyond. Sound like a movie. And I believe that is, what is that? That's Again, Mercury, another reference to Mercury. Okay, this is the Lovers plural. So we have what looks like a mirror. Now, when you look in a mirror, usually you see yourself. So this might be an admonishment to know yourself, or to love yourself, or to have a relationship with yourself that you can tolerate, right? Or, you know, it could be to mirror someone you love, you know, mirror your partner. So, you know, if you know, there's a thing called mirroring, right? I maybe this is a reference to that, or it could be more of a reference to what I mentioned already, you know, to love yourself or to have a relationship with yourself or to know yourself. But, you know, if you mirror your partner, perhaps it's, you know, being compatible or being on the same page with an individual who is a partner. Okay, the Chariot, this is interesting. So there's wings. There's maybe a reference to the epaulets on the shoulders of the soldier or the knight or the prince, whoever is, you know, appearing on the chariot. So that might be a reference to it, or it could just be something else. But there's definitely movement, you know, with the wings. And then I guess you could suggest that looks like roads going in the distance. So it could suggest, you know, travel. I don't know without the name if I would say, oh, this is the chariot. I don't know if I would recognize it. If I had to take the 21 cards or however many there are in this particular deck, you know, the higher order cards, I might get some of them right, you know, but I don't know if I'd get them all right, you know, without knowledge of the name or having read the book. And then I believe that's Cancer. Leo, I know that one because that's what I am. I'm a Leo. Okay, so for the number 8th card, they switched with the tradition of the ancient decks, and this is more of an occultist deck. You know, I guess that's obvious. So we have Strength for 8 rather than Justice. And we do have a lemniscate, which I mostly will associate with the Justice card, but they have it here for Strength with Leo. Now this looks like some kind of niche. Could be, you know, like it could be a type of mirror, or it could be a niche in a wall with a thorny flower and infinity, sun. You know, I'm not really, I really need to read the book. And maybe after doing this, when I read the book, I can come back and fill in the gaps of what I did not understand so that it makes more sense for you. But I just prefer to be genuine when I do my videos and to give you my impression as I see, especially a brand new deck. And I think I neglected to show you the backs. So here are the backs while I'm thinking of it. So the Hermit, well, there's definitely enlightening, you know, some kind of like, this is all very shiny. So there's, you know, in a sense, I guess it could be suggestive of the lantern. I don't know that I would pick that up on my own without knowing that it's the Hermit. And then we have, I think that's either Virgo or Scorpio. I don't know which one that might be. But if we sometimes think of the Hermit as a final, you know, like the number 9 card, and number 9 being a number that passes, it's the height of what it can be before it passes to the next generation, then I'm guessing that this is probably referencing, either Scorpio or Saturn, something like that. Maybe I don't know. I just don't know. It's my lack of knowledge here that's, not allowing me to know that. But I do know the meaning of the card. So if I had known this, it would just reinforce my understanding of the card. If I don't know what the meaning of the Hermit is, but I know this, it also would give me another reference point of understanding. It's interesting. It almost looks like water, like a boat, pushing through water, the waves of water. It could look like a hot air balloon, but we definitely have the glossiness of light. Fortuna. Now remember, in the ancient Italian decks, that Lady Fortuna was represented on the Wheel of Fortune. Lady Fortuna is our equivalent of Lady Luck, right? So we have, I think, a reference to Fortuna on this card. But the planetary symbol is, I think that's Jupiter. I know the planets, better than I know the signs of the zodiac. Plus, I have a reference here, which helps me out a little bit if I forget. So this almost Lady Fortuna, we have the lemniscate, obviously, which is different from a wheel, but the lemniscate is ongoing, never ending, which lends itself to a wheel in some ways. And also it almost looks like an hourglass, like time passing, right? Like infinity, time passing in in a non-finite way. Here we have justice with the sword and the scales, with the sun and the moon. I think they're equal. I think they're even. Let's see if we line them up. If they're not, it's very... It's not real easy to see, to tell, but it looks pretty even-keeled to me, because this card is straight. We have the Sword of Justice and the Scales of Justice. So this would be a card that you'd be able to identify. And that, oh gosh, I don't know. Okay, the Hanged One, right? We have an eye. Well, it looks like an eye. A little Neptune, little symbol for Neptune maybe. And then this looks reminiscent of an Ankh upside down. Wow. Death is really beautiful. It's like a release, right? It's like freedom. It's like a letting go, and moving upward. That's really pretty. As far as aesthetics go, it's really beautiful. I think it's a more masculine than feminine. I think it has a more masculine than feminine appeal, but I guess it's kind of gender neutral also. It's not fussy, like, I mean, despite having the glossiness of the gold, the gold embellishment, because of the deep, saturated emerald green color, it's not like fairy dust and rainbows, it's more, masculine or if anything, gender neutral. Here we have alchemy. Okay, so for 14, which would typically be temperance, we have the word alchemy. And temperance could be seen as the word alchemy of the two cups, being mixed together to create a new substance, right? So that fits very well with this image. I might have figured out that this one was temperance. Ah, the devil. Interesting. Now, the devil is another incarnation of the number 6 card, which was the lover, the lover's card, right? But this mirror is more fancy and ornate. And it lends me to believe that, what is love, which is pure, or, pure understanding or pure reflection or whatever, this is more vanity, this is more fancy, more vanity. And some of us, myself included, when I think of the next card, which is the Tower, I think of, the devil coming before the tower sometimes in terms of vanity comes before the fall. Right? And this, for me, is a real good depiction of the devil in illustrating vanity comes before the fall. So we have vanity, which is a lack of virtue, which the devil card is lack of virtue, right? So we have lack of virtue, and from that comes a fall. Now, we don't see the typical representation of a tower, but we do see downward motion, right? We do see downward motion. I'm not, I guess that's a symbol for Mars, which I guess would be a reference, to male energy, warring, maybe just a little bit of a destructive energy. Like that may, also could give, when we see the tower, let me pause and pull a tower from the Dodal. Okay, so we have what is, the tower that we're familiar with, the intercession or the presence of a divine activity affecting the tower. Some people say that what's happening in the tower is going outward. Some people say that whatever is coming from above and beyond is affecting the tower. So it depends on, your take on it. But if we compare it to here, we have, the same kind of rays emanating. We have a reference to perhaps the divine, and then we have downward motion, and we do have steps or the suggestion of elevation. So I don't know if there was only a couple of cards left and I had to decide which one was the tower without having the word on it. I might figure that this might have been a possible representation for the tower. So we have Aquarius, which is often the image that the sign of the zodiac Aquarius is one that is often representing the star. So I probably would have figured this one out. We have the lemniscate again, you know, and when we get to the stars and we get to the heavens, we're talking about, you know, infinite possibilities, going above and going beyond the beyond. It's a beautiful card. Okay, the moon. There are enough moons in this deck. I don't know that I would necessarily know that this was the moon. I think this looks like, you know, is that the representation for Gemini? I think. So I always think of the moon as being typically associated with Cancer. And I don't think that is the symbol for Cancer. So I don't know if I would make the connection, but it does look like the moon. The sun. The sun is very pretty, and I think there's no mistaking that this card would be the sun. So it radiates warmth, it radiates power. That is the symbol for the sun, I know that. Very nice. Now I have an overhead light on, you know, and so it's catching the light. It's an overcast day here. So you see there is a reflective quality. Judgment. Now remember, in the first Italian decks that Judgment was typically represented by an angel with a horn. So we have what looks like a horn. We have an enlightened, you know, reference to whatever it is that's enlightened, right? We have two snake-like creatures. So this would definitely be something I need to read about. And the universe in place of the world. Really, oh, like all, you know, okay, so it looks like we have like the elements all represented. We have maybe what could be considered the four evangelists on a typical, you know, traditional card. Right, we have, you know, those references. So if you didn't know them on a regular card, you might be able to pick up those qualities from these symbols. And then we have the infinity symbol, and I think that's a reference to Saturn here. Oh, okay. So this card is the extra card called the Magnum Opus, the realization of the goal, right? So whereas the World card or the Universe card might have been considered the Magnum Opus of a regular deck, this one has a little extra. This has the fulfillment, you know, the actual fulfillment of that. We have the four elements. We have fire, water, air, and that's water. That's water. So this can't be water. So this must be, this is fire, earth. Okay, fire, earth, air, and water. So the four elements. It's hard for me to see because I've mentioned this before doing videos. I'm looking through a camera lens, so I'm not seeing, you know, as easily as you are what I'm looking at. Okay, so here we appear to be moving on to the pips. And here we have, that looks like fire. And, okay, so it's called candles, so it makes sense that this would be associated with the suit of fire. So however you associate fire, if you associate it with batons or something else, then this would be your fire suit. So we have 2, and there seems to be a connection between the 2. Like a spark that eggs the other on. Three is, like a beautiful sconce on the wall, right? This one is more powerful, but the other 2 are contributing to the overall beauty of the card. So now with 4, we're moving from a sconce on the wall, to more of a candelabra, more sophisticated. Again, more sophisticated. And then the court cards of the suit of candles, or the fire suit. Now, for whatever reason, we have earth and fire on this card. And here we have fire and fire. Here we have water and fire. So water might be associated with the feminine, right? And, we're going from either a sconce on the wall or a lantern on a table or a candelabra that sits on a piano or whatever to something that hangs from the sky or from a ceiling. So they're higher than the others are. So there's an elevation of these last 2 individuals, right? There's like a... This is like their crown. They're the crown jewel of the room, right? They're hanging, they're suspended, so they're higher than the others. Okay, the Ace of Elixirs, which suggests liquid, and then the picture itself looks like cups. So I think there would be no trouble with the pip cards so far in being able to distinguish what the pips were and the numbers of the pips. Again, like the Ace of Fire, or the 2 of Fire rather, there is like a co-mingling of the 2 cups here. And then maybe an evaporation. So despite it being a modern deck, I'm happy that it's a pip style deck because I really prefer to use pip style decks. I don't always just use TDM or the Italians. I have modern pip style decks, that I like to use. And so this might be one I'd have to, this might be a really good one, a good choice for me in learning, better learning what, astrological features of a card might be, because they appear on a lot of cards. I tend to ignore them since I know the meaning of the cards, but it would still offer me a level of a greater understanding, especially if I forget something. If I forget to mention something, any additional feature which can prompt your mind to remember is helpful, right? We have the Princess. Okay, so like we saw with the candles, the I think it was a female. The 10, the card, yeah, the 11th card is a princess. So they're honoring the female in place of the male pages or valets. So we have the Princess of Elixir. It almost looks like a heart. The Prince. And like the Empress and the Emperor, there's a roundness for the female and there's an angular for the male. So in this deck, if you see angles and you didn't have the names, or if you saw, rounder shapes or features, you would probably be okay in assuming that this would represent a female and this would represent the male. Alongside of, the well, actually, this I think is earth, and this is water. Yeah, so the water might, earth and water are the more feminine of the least, the more passive of the suits, of the elements. So yeah, this would tell you that it's female because of earth, earth and water. And then these would be, if you didn't pick up on the angular picture, then the fire and water symbols would, be a suggestion that we're looking at the male or more forceful suit, or the more active. But then here we have Queen, and again, and then we have water and fire. No, we have water and water. Okay, so she's the queen. Okay, so we have keys. So the last one, that was male, were the candelabra, which the fire, the candles, which I think I associate it with the batons in my case. Here, since it's another one, especially since it's, being depicted as air, right? We have the air symbol. So this would be another male or a more dominant suit or a more active suit. So then by default, we could say that this would be swords, if you want to associate it that way. But we have the suit of keys. This looks like a nod to the four swords of the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. The, I guess, effigy of the soldier in repose, right, on the coffin. A reference here to water for the Six of Swords. What a tangled. And we have the princess. So again, we have earth and earth and air. So she's not as passive. So here we have the queen and king. Again, the round for the female and the angular for the male, and then the symbols up here. So if we were to see a water symbol, we would, know that it was probably feminine, especially with earth, right? And then these are the two symbols that are the more active. So he's a manly man here. Salt of the earth kind of guy. Oh no, this isn't earth, excuse me. Air. I apologize. Salt of the earth would be this suit. Okay, we have the Ace of Talismans, which is associated with earth. So, happily, there are names for the cards, because I don't think, no matter how well you know the cards, I mean, I've been interpreting the cards for almost 50 years. I don't know that I would necessarily have been able to identify readily what each of the Triumph cards were specifically. I'd have a better chance at understanding the pip cards, especially since I understand, the elements, symbols, and I also, could identify fire with batons or whatever. There might be a learning curve, though, in being able to fully identify, out of the gate, which cards represent what. Almost looks like a diamond ring for the Princess of Coins or Talismans. And again, for the Prince, someone who's, it's circular, but it's a sheath, right? It's not a sheath, it's a scythe, right? It's like he's put in some physical labor, whereas she's wearing a pretty ring. So there we have it. I don't think this is I don't think this is a riffle shuffle kind of deck. No, the cards are kind of stiff in similarity to other, to other, cards that are, thick, So this would be an overhand shuffle kind of deck, I think. But they glide. They glide nicely. They have a nice feel. And they're pretty. They really are pretty. And, although it's a modern deck and it's not an ancient tarot deck, which I am partial to, I can see myself I definitely want to learn more about it. I will definitely peruse the book. And, I want to know what the creator had in mind for some of these cards. I'm not being untrue to my channel because it's about tarot history, and tarot history is being made every day, every single day with a new tarot deck. Tarot history is being made, And this, deck appears to be made by someone with some familiarity with tarot, whether it's the Hermetic Order, of the Golden Dawn, or, the Thoth, or even the Rider-Waite-Smith, more than it is, the ancients. But, those decks came from the ancients also. And so those decks are full of ancient references because they're called the same things most of the time. And even if these aren't called by the same old words, we know what they are. You can dress it up and call it something new, but we know what they're representing, right? So, anyway, Richard, thank you. This is, a lovely gift. And it's definitely one that I'm interested in learning more about. And what I'm going to be doing this afternoon is reading the book and seeing what has to be said. And I am going to learn, I think if I'm going to learn astrology in reference to the cards, this will probably be the deck that helps me out. Now, bear in mind that not all astrological symbols I don't think they all mean the same thing for every deck creator who puts astrological symbols on cards. I mean, the astrological symbols that this creator uses might differ from another one. So I think, that's another reason why I never really glommed onto astrology in tarot, is because it's not necessarily consistent. I could be wrong, but I think that's the case. Plus, I already had learned what the cards meant, so I wasn't dependent on additional symbols. But I think it would be fun. The more you know, the more you know, right? This is a very lovely card to end the conversation with, the 10 of Talismans. Until next time, friends, peace, stay well, and Richard, thank you. Thank you very much. I love it.